Hello and welcome to Project Oneness World. Today we are in conversation with Professor Laila Marouf. Laila is an Assistant Vice President for Research at Kuwait University, and she is a professor in Information Studies at the College of Social Sciences in the university. Laila holds a PhD in Library and Information Science from University of Pittsburgh with a focus on knowledge management, and she has a BSc in Computer Science and Mathematical Statistics from Kuwait University. And when you talk of knowledge management, that's Laila's primary research and teaching area. She has taught in this area for many years, and also other related courses, and also published a large number of papers. And that's how we ended up collaborating as well, right? Because in 2013, in September that year, I think Laila was visiting Simmons College during a sabbatical for, and you were looking for research collaboration, and that's how we ended up talking. And Laila and we ended up writing a paper, working on it for like 1 year.
Wow, yes.
Yeah.
You're a perfectionist. That's right.
Pretty much. I just want to talk about what knowledge management is. So how would you describe knowledge management?
First of all, thank you for having me today. I would like really to thank you for that. And thinking of knowledge management, you know that there's not thousands, but so many definitions out there. But the one I really, really like or relate to is that knowledge management is putting information in action.
Right.
I like that because it reflects the experience of people. It reflects their intuition, their errors, their successes, all that combined. Because why for us it's important nowadays and having to manage knowledge, it's all about managing that experience of people or providing the context and the environment where people can excel in creating new knowledge and what we call now innovation.
Right.
That's where I really find the effect.
Yeah, and for people who are not familiar with this area, basically it has been something since the mid-90s or so.
Yes.
And since early to mid-90s, companies started saying that all this knowledge which is there in our employees, when they leave, this knowledge sort of walks out with them. Mm-hmm. So what can we do to ensure that that knowledge remains in the organization?
Yes, as an organization memory.
As an organizational memory, so that
Yes.
even after people leave or resign or go away, that knowledge remains.
You know, I find it very interesting that my daughter just started with PwC in Dubai.
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Yes. And the amount of training that she's getting right now and the interest and how much money they're putting into that. Imagine if every organization, they put that amount of effort and money into new employees, and then in a year or two, they just leave. I mean, you know, come to think of that, you know, as a practical example, I would see how much it's really, really important to manage knowledge in organizations like that,
right, yeah.
Where, you know, you can't just waste money and effort on employees where they just leave and take everything that they have learned. It's not the information we're talking about, it's the knowledge, the tacit knowledge really that we're interested in, and that's the valuable knowledge that we're looking for.
And tacit knowledge here is knowledge which is there in people's heads.
Yes.
The kind of the knowledge that we know how to drive, but not really be able to explain how to do that.
Yes.
And that's the knowledge which people have, and organizations have been struggling with how to capture this tacit knowledge which is in people's heads, as well as knowledge which is there in books and so on.
Right. That's why we can't say really capture as much as create an environment where people can share that knowledge. That's why, you know, it's creating the environment, the culture, the systems, everything where people can share, because it's tacit knowledge. It's hard to capture and put in systems and documents and so on.
And so on, yeah. And so the paper that we worked on was really looking at that how can we, even though people know that knowledge management is important, there have been lots of success stories, but if colleges and universities were to do that, there was not really any template as to what should they do, what are the steps to follow, what are the resources required, and in order to implement knowledge management. And that's where we wrote this paper on a 10-step process, which can lead to any university implementing knowledge management, and that can be applied in various organizations, in libraries and in for-profit organizations, non-profit organizations as well.
Sure.
So that was our first paper, and our second collaboration after that was taking the step 3 from a 10-step process and look at capturing the current state in an organization and seeing our faculty members ready to implement knowledge management, and really looking at individual factors affecting the knowledge management readiness.
Yeah, because you cannot say, where you're heading unless you know where you stand now.
Where you
And that's
stand.
what we were looking for. Where do
Yeah.
we stand now as an organization, whether it's a university or corporate, any kind of organization? Where do you stand now? Because according to that, you're going to assess your strength, your weaknesses, and then accordingly, you plan the strategies that can really help you move forward towards knowledge management.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those were our 2 papers that we worked on together, and we probably still have 7 or 8 papers planned from those 10 steps, and we'll
Yes.
probably have future collaborations. So thank you, Laila. I think to talk about more about you as a person, tell us your story in your own words.
The story. I think I'll start where you ended, and that's where I earned my BS in computer science and mathematical statistics. The last semester of my college years, I met my husband, my future husband. We got married 6 months after graduation. So for 10 years, I was a dedicated mother and wife. My husband is a businessman, so we traveled a lot. I wanted to be with him the first few years of our marriage. And then we had our son, daughter. So I was kind of a dedicated mother for a couple of years. Then when they went to school, this is where I felt that it's time for me to do something for myself and my career. Of course, my computer science degree was expired after all these years, so it was very hard for me to think, where do I start now? I thought at the beginning of my MBA, I went to the business school, talked to them about that. They told me for 1 year you have to take some courses before you can apply to MBA. I said, another year of just doing classes? No. One of my friends, my closest friends, came to me and she said, Laila, there's this new program, master's program in library information science. I looked at her and said, library information, what does that have to do with me? I said, no, let's try it, let's do it. And she was so motivated. She went and brought the papers for the TOEFL. We did it together. Imagine after all these
Right.
years. And we submitted our papers. We were accepted, me and her. Went first class. I remember it was about computer-human interaction. And there was this professor. He was amazingly intelligent. But I don't know, a part of his communication, maybe skills was a bit, I don't know. He couldn't maybe relate. Anyway, so my friend said, I can't do this. This is not my cup of tea. I'm going to quit. I said, but you're the one who brought me here.
Yeah.
She quit. And I continued. Imagine. Finished my master's. I took it as a part-time because, again, I had my kids, so I would run to classes in the morning, go back to home before they come from school and all that. So I took it as a part-time. Finished in 3 years. Then 3 or 4 of my professors sat with me, I remember, after graduation. They told me, Laila, why don't you go and finish your PhD and come back and be a faculty member here with us? We need it. We're a new program, and this can help us a lot and all that. Of course, I look at them and I say, that must be crazy. I'm married. I have 2 kids. They're in school. My husband is here. No, how? Anyway, so I felt, wow, what a great opportunity, something to really think about. I went to my husband, talked to him. The first reaction, oh, you must be crazy. And then, I don't know. I just felt this is it. And I convinced him. He was really, really supportive. I mean, amazingly supportive. So it happened. I just looked into many schools. I was accepted in McGill University in Canada and Montreal. I was accepted at Florida State and Pittsburgh. I looked into who's going to be my advisor. That was kind of my, intuition that, okay, I need a good advisor. I found Dr. Jose Marie Griffiths. She was teaching at University of Pittsburgh at that time. And she was on the National Science Foundation. She was working with NASA. And, I had that kind of, initial readings in knowledge management at that time as a master's student. I did a couple of research papers with one of my professors. So I was kind of want to get in that area. It was a new area in, kind of in 2001, 2 at that time.
Right.
So anyway, we went to Pittsburgh, took my 2 kids, put them in schools there. My husband stayed with us for a month and he had to go back. So I was a PhD student and a mother and doing all that together in Pittsburgh, but it was a great experience, to be honest. Finished my PhD in 3 years and went back and started teaching in 2005 at Kuwait University.
Nice.
Yes. Then I started teaching classes like 101 in information literacy. Then I created a class in information behavior in Arabic, believe it or not. It was a challenge for me. It was really a challenge. Because again, the material, everything in English. So how do you do that? How do you translate all that? How do you start communicating even in Arabic? It was very, very difficult, but it worked. Then 2 years after that, I started the knowledge management class at the master's level. That was my passion. It's still my passion. It's something that I really, really have pleasure teaching that class till now. Worked on my research, the same time, became an associate professor after 4 years. Then I worked on my professorship.
That part I know. I think that process we started talking, right? When you were going up for your full professorship.
Yes. So again, focus. I think that's the word, focus. I really focused on research, on my teaching, on, community, all those things that would help you in your promotion. And I became a full professor in 2016. It was a really nice, good feeling that you have achieved that academic, level.
And now you're in administration.
Yes, I don't know how, but yes, it was again a challenge, another challenge. I think for me, it's all about experiencing something new because you really need to find yourself. You need to find what are you good at. That was a challenge for me. I've never been into administration. I was hesitant, to be honest. But then when I knew that this position, I'm heading 2 offices. One is external collaboration and consultation, and the other office was the patents office.
Right.
Both of them, in a way, it was exciting because first of all, I'm in a research sector, and that's I'm always fond of research and meeting researchers. This time from faculty from all colleges in the university. It was really nice. Plus, you're exposed to other universities, national, international. That's also a really, really great opportunity to meet exciting people, exciting researchers from around the world. So that's the good part of being in administration. It's not as much administrative work as you think.
Right.
It has a lot to do with your skills as a researcher, your understanding. How do you help other faculty members achieve, their research goals? And that's the part that I like. It's amazing to help other faculty member achieve that. Graduate students even they come to my office. What, I'm doing this research, I think this is patentable. What can I do? How can you help me? And we do that, in the patents office. If you have really what you think is a great idea, you just submit an application where it goes into a process of sending it to an office here in the United States. We go through all that process of assessing that project, your idea, till it is patentable, and expenses paid from the university, plus an incentive after that. You can, it's a money incentive that you take a prize if it's done to the last stage and all that. And now, my greatest challenge is converting that patents office into a technology transfer office.
Okay.
And that's part of knowledge management. I'm relating all that, oh my God, knowledge management gets into everything, even this job in many ways, because it's all about knowledge creation. You're having a great idea, you're researching something comes up that you think, wow, this is new, this is something we can do. So for the last 10 years, the patents office would only register. Now I want to move to the next step. How do you make value out of your patent?
Right.
How do you commercialize this idea? How can we help you do that again? Yeah. So I'm moving that office into that direction right now, because the whole vision of Kuwait now is transferring into what they call the knowledge-based economy. Because it's an oil-based country, it's, our whole income, GDP is all based on oil. And now they're realizing in the 10, 20, 50 years to come, we have to shift that into what they call the knowledge-based economy. So you see how knowledge management comes into practice in every way, even my administrative job now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now moving on to your next question, which is talking about your childhood. What was the childhood like, and what are the 1 to 3 things that come to your mind when you think of your growing up years? And the reason I ask this question is because I read somewhere that in order to see where a person is now, you need to look back at where a person came from. Some of those formative influences really help you become the person you are.
Interesting. Yes, maybe thinking about it now, it makes sense. I grew up and brought up in a city called Ahmadi, which is really, I think of Ahmadi, I think of gardens, parks. It was the greenest city in Kuwait. And we had visitors on the weekend coming to Ahmadi just to look at the gardens, the parks. My childhood was in that city, and it was amazing because it was such a... I can remember always outdoor activities, going to clubs, swimming, horseback riding, all these kind of, I think it was a great childhood in many ways. But also what stands out for me is that my mother, especially, she was very much into, we have to do something useful in the summers. So she had nothing, when you think of summers for her, it's always putting us in summer boarding schools. So I came to the United States when I was like 10 years old to a camp in Vermont, Camp Kinea, for instance, for that summer for 2 months. I stayed in that camp. Went to a couple of boarding schools in Switzerland, in England. I think in many ways this kind of international experience, meeting a lot of people from different countries. I think that broadens your perspectives. It even made my English much better, all that practice, all these years, because I remember I learned English, but I had to learn French also in Switzerland. So, it had to be a second language and all that. But I think that gave us a lot. It gave us, as you said, I think without feeling it, without thinking about it, it prepares you to other steps in your life. It helped a lot in relating to different cultures, in valuing diversity in many ways. It's much easier when you are exposed to that from an early age.
Yeah, then you get much more used to working with and
yes.
with people from all walks of life.
Yes, and it also made us realize the importance of time. That summers, as I said, it was always structured around activities, around classes, about doing this and that. So till now, even if I'm on vacation, I still have always that urge. Oh, I need to do this. I need to do that.
Some sort of structure.
Yes, yes.
So that's nice. What people, books, or events have been significant influences on you?
I don't know why, but when you ask this question, the first person that comes to my mind is a professor at University of Pittsburgh that I met. He was in his late 80s, 90s, and his name was Professor Anthony Debbins. I don't know why, but really this person had an effect in my way of thinking of work. That passion he had, even at that age. He would, ride his car, come to school. I'm talking about late 80s, 90s, person. Always enthusiastic about doing things. At that age, he was working on a book, online class, that he was creating this and that. I think always in my mind, in the back of my mind, he's always there. Always pushing me, encouraging me, you can do this, you can do that, no matter what age you are. You have to think of goals, put things. I would tell him, Tony, why didn't you go to where your daughter was living? She was living in another state, not in Pittsburgh. Yeah. And he would tell me, no, I would die if I go there, because what makes me stay alive is coming to my office every day, working on this book or working on that class. He's the person that really stands in my mind when you talk about that.
Yes, and I think I have a later question which goes on this, but this idea of continuous learning,
yes,
right? And
yes.
Working at no matter what age. Age you are in.
Yes. And I think that's important. Even as you grow older, you need that more, maybe not, in a flexible way. Maybe, you have to think of something that suits your life at certain ages. Sometimes even, not even age-wise, maybe life circumstances. You don't know your
Right.
kids, this, that. So it's finding the right thing to do at the right time,
Right
in a
time,
way. That's very, very important. And I've been trying to do that all along. I mean, some of the challenges that I've been facing is to balance your working life with your family
The
life.
family life. Yeah.
It's always a challenge. I mean, till now it's a challenge.
You're a mother of two, right?
Yes.
And you're in Boston to visit your
Actually, she graduated.
She graduated, your daughter, yeah.
She did. She graduated, and she's working in PwC now in Dubai.
Dubai.
And my son graduated. So I'm in a phase of my life now where I'm thinking of them more, their careers, their what they have to do and
Yeah.
all that. But at the same time, what's my next step? Yes, I am doing this. I'm in this position now for another maybe year and a half. And then I have 2 years sabbatical to think about what's my next step, and all that. So
Right.
it's always nice challenge. It's always exciting to think of your next step, I think.
It is
you
nice,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the key skills you have developed that helped you succeed?
I think time management. Time management is a key to everything, especially in this balance of having a career and a family. If you don't have time management, I think that's not going to work at all. Also, I think I've learned to cut things or not to be overwhelmed always. When you think always of the picture as a whole, you get overwhelmed. How can I do this? How can I do that? I think I've learned to cut things into small pieces. Like, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow? Eventually, you will get there, but not to overwhelm yourself, because that could be also very stressful,
Right.
in terms and keeping that enthusiasm going.
Okay.
You have to find that. You have to find how to light that fire all the time, because that's what will make you, kind of excited about what you're doing, moving forward in a happy way.
Yeah.
In many ways.
So let me probe this a little further. So what can you do to keep the fire going?
I think
Or
setting.
what works for you?
For me, what works for me
Yeah.
is setting goals. I love setting goals, but realistic ones. I've learned that, again, setting realistic goals is important, because we can dream, right?
Yeah.
We can always dream, we have big dreams, but it's all about acting on those dreams, and making it happen. And if you want to keep continuing that, I think having realistic goals is more exciting, because you can achieve those in one way or another.
Yeah.
They're achievable, they're doable. So if you can take those as small successes, it will keep you going to the next step and the
Okay.
next step, things like that.
And you talked about time management, right?
Mhm.
So what do you do to manage your time effectively?
I plan ahead. I think since I was even a student, I remember in high school, in 12th grade, like, if I know that my final exam, let's say, is tomorrow, I'm finished 3 days before. The last day, I will go swimming, I'll go walking, I will never touch a
That
book.
is amazing. I think that's
Seriously.
because
That's
most students, I think, would like. At least I'm not. Maybe most students is not the right word, but a lot of people I know are procrastinators. And do things the last minute, and they're somehow trying to
I
finish
can't.
things.
That's not my style at all. Always. The last day, 2 days, I'm relaxed. I'm doing things other than whatever I have to do. And that helped me a lot, personally.
So that could be the key. I think if you're looking at one of the key reasons for your success, right? That could be a key reason as to doing things ahead of time.
Yes, I always like to plan everything. Even in my personal life, I like to plan. Of course, no, not everything works out, but still,
Yeah.
planning is good. It makes me comfortable in many ways. That's one of the things that really, really help.
And how do you find the motivation to work on things before time when you know that you still have some more extra time to finish it?
It's again cutting it into small pieces. You know what I'm saying? It's putting those, like, let's say you put a action plan, that in this week I'll be finished with 1, 2, 3. Next week I'll be finished. Ticking those out of that list is for me a motivator to go to the next step.
To the next.
Yes,
Okay.
that's how I do it. It helps.
And does it always work? When we have three things to cut out, do you manage those three things?
Sometimes I prioritize. Sometimes you have to drop. So sometimes I drop my personal trainer, or I drop this or that.
Something.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the end, you realize that was an important thing that you dropped. It's not what you thought is.
Okay, slow.
You know.
Yeah.
But I do that. I try to do that. You know, that as much as possible, I can manage things if I can.
You're planning. Okay. And what do you think have been your biggest successes?
Being a mother is my biggest achievement for, you know, two graduates now that I feel they have started their life and their careers. I feel very proud of that. And I think being a teacher, I think that's the most rewarding profession, really. That because it's amazing how you feel rewarded instantly when you see that, you know, love and spark in
people's
their,
eyes,
yes. And not only that you see how you affected their lives. I have a colleague of mine now who was one of my students, you know, that I feel that I influenced how, you know, the way he was very passionate about, you know, things. He went and he proceeded, even women. Sometimes being a role model for women, especially in the Middle East, you know, is a great for me, you know, it's a great satisfaction, a great success that I feel that I have influenced many of my students to continue their studies or to work in this. It's being a teacher is not only academia. You know, you're mentoring in many ways, you're a life coach in many ways. And I try to do that all the time, you know, just not, you know, being there for them when they need to talk, when they need to discuss things. Even in my classroom, what I try to do is, I'm not the typical, you know, professor, you know, I don't, it's, I like to keep space. I throw a question, for instance, or a quote, or this or that, and let them talk, let them discuss things. Even in learning the academic part, I'm so much into the practical side. I think that's how they learn more. You know, when they go out there and they discover, you know, talking about knowledge management. Yes, we take these books and they read it, but they can do that anytime.
Right.
What they need to do is they need to go out there and see what is going on in those organizations in Kuwait. Are they practicing knowledge management? It doesn't have to be the label of knowledge management. That's what I tell my students. You can go and explore out there and see what practices they're doing under knowledge management. They don't even know that they're doing it, for instance. What do they need to do? How can you help them? How can this and that? And at the end of a class, when a student comes and says, oh my God, this was the best class I've taken, that's for me success.
That's success,
Yes.
yeah. And apart from your success as a teacher, you talked about two other aspects, right, I think, which are important. One, when I first approached you for this interview and I talked about this idea of Project Oneness World, where I mentioned that this project will interview people from all walks of life and we try and find something common that people have across the world. And you said something very interesting, and you said that what is common across the world is being a mother.
Yes.
And no matter which religion or which culture or which part of the world you come from, a mother is a mother to a child.
Yes, that's
right?
true.
And
That's
so
true.
so you want to
Because we experience the same feelings, the same, you know, protective nature in many ways. You want them to succeed, you want to protect them, but you want that balance, okay? That you want them to also fly, have their own wings as strong as possible, you know? And those kind of feelings are, you know, universal in many ways.
Right.
So it is true. Being a mother is very much a universal thing. Actually, one of the things I'm thinking about as a goal for the future is looking at knowledge management in different cultures and seeing what are the differences, similarities, and all that. So this is
maybe something for us to collaborate on.
To think about
To think
in
about,
the future. Because again, now, you know, as much as, you know, you're seeing things that are happening in the world, but we are a small village now. I feel it. I mean, whether we like it or not, we're connected, you know. So more understanding about other cultures, valuing diversity. All this is not cliche. It's not talk. It's real. It's really.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I think helped me in my career is that I relate to different cultures. I can be very comfortable in different cultures. I mean, moving from Kuwait to United States with two kids, okay, and adapting and, you know, it's not only adapting, it's how fast you adapt. How fast you can relate to other people around you and work with them and do this and feel comfortable. I think that's the skills that we need our kids, we need our colleagues, more people in the world to have,
Right.
and able to succeed. I think that's very important. As much as we teach now our students certain skills and all that, I think education should change in the future. I think we should focus more on the soft skills that they need. I think our graduates now, they need more and more of emotional intelligence, more than IQ and more than what we see out there. I can see that so much now, that even in interviews back in Kuwait, they look at, if you look at organizations and corporate, big corporate names there, they look at certain skills they didn't look at before. They look at, how do you communicate? How can you relate to this person or that person? How can you be a team player? More than your grades or what you have learned or this or that. So I think as teachers and professors and colleges and universities, they are looking more and more on how do we change our curriculum in a way that suits the future markets. Because whatever we're teaching now, I don't think it's, it's as good as we want it to be.
I think soft skills, the skill to get along with people. Get along with all kinds of people, right?
Yes, yeah,
that is a key skill.
Of course, and that's one of the main resources for success. I think it's networking.
It's networking.
Yes, of course. Imagine if you know people in X university in Europe, in Australia, in Singapore. Think of the accumulative knowledge that you can come up with, how
Right.
strong that would be. The research projects that we're talking about, the flavor of a multidisciplinary even research, a multicultural research, that would be amazing.
For that, you need to have a mindset where you see people as people, right?
Yeah, of course.
And
Not only see people, you need to value diversity. You need to appreciate their differences and value that. I remember, my dissertation was focused on knowledge sharing and social networks. So I studied in parts the social network theory and all that, and we talked about the strength of weak ties. So what does that mean? That means even people who you don't know very well, the knowledge they have could be so beneficial and so,
Okay.
right? It could be a great resource. Why? Because you don't know it, right? Your strong ties, in a way, the knowledge that flows are similar. It's similar,
right.
In many ways. You don't need that all the time. You need things that you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of that comes from that theory.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to touch on from your earlier answer was this idea of being a role model to women, right? And do you think of being a role model to women in the Middle East or in Kuwait or all over the world? And in what ways?
I think in many ways there's a stereotype about women in Kuwait, Middle East. You can't say Middle East as one country because
Right.
they're different. It's very different. Talking about Kuwait, Kuwait has been very modern, progressive for many years for women.
Yeah.
We have women ambassadors, we have women in the National Assembly. Women are out there in many ways. So I think what I can be a role model for my students, at least, is it's never too late. That I went back to school when I have 2 kids.
Okay.
That can be inspiring to a lot of, women around me, even many of my friends, seriously, they went back, they did not go back to school, but they thought of, oh, you know what, I can be a writer, I can start my own business, I can do this and that. That's, for me, is amazing that I could inspire that in other women.
Yeah, so I think the key lesson here is that even if you are, based on your choices or circumstances in life, not able to pursue some part of yourself, of your dreams,
Yes.
you can always come back to it when the time is right.
Yes. Exactly, exactly. That's very important.
That's it.
I think another thing that I can say very important is you need to get out of your comfort zone. And that's not easy sometimes. That was kind of my case. I was in a comfort zone for many, many years. And taking myself, my kids, my family out of that comfort zone and, and having that goal that I want to do this, it it was rewarding after that, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be turbulent for, you know, a while, but then you're going to achieve a level where you're going to be happy, you're going to be content, much more than if you stayed in that comfort zone,
Right, yeah.
you know.
One word that you mentioned when you're talking of kids, right, was this idea of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And I do not understand this term very well, but I think I probably have it to a certain extent.
Emotional intelligence is, first of all, being aware of yourself, being aware of your strengths, your weaknesses, in order to manage what you think you can work on. Sometimes you think, oh, you know, I have to work on my weaknesses. No, it's not true. You sometimes your strength, you could have a strength where if you're here, you can, you know, come up to here, and this is where you're going to excel in your life, you know. So part of emotional intelligence is knowing yourself and managing all that, and managing your emotions. When you're upset, when you're angry, how do you, you know, perceive that? How can you control yourself and all that? Because all these is going to help you in your life, in your work, in dealing with relationships with your colleagues and all that. The other part is being aware of others. Right. So I'm aware of how your personality is, you know, because that's going to help me so much, again, in how I'm going to deal with you, how I'm going to motivate you, maybe as a leader, yeah. How I'm going to take the best out of you, how, if this or that. So it's two parts. It's yourself and it's others, and how you can be aware of your environment and how do you act according to. Yeah.
I watched a documentary which talked about 3 key factors which can lead to happiness. And one factor was investing in your personal growth, continuing to learn, and which is one thing that you've done, right, all the while. And continuing to learn and excel. And the other is doing something for others, making a difference in other people's lives, and trying to be useful. And the third is the quality, maintaining and effective relationships, the quality of relationships that you have. So all these 3 were listed as important factors to affect your happiness. So one question for you is, how do you relate to each of these, or what strategies do you have for managing personal growth?
I think from whatever I said, I think you can realize that 3 of those things really made me happier in my life, more content, which is, as you said, first of all, my career, my development and all that, but part of that being a teacher, helping others in this position that I am in now. It's just amazing, and it's really rewarding in many ways, you know, just that part. About relationships, I think that's important. As you grow also in life, you realize what is important, what kind of relationships that are important to you.
And you said that's probably the most important, right, of the 3?
Yes, you know, I don't know why, but we are social creatures, right? I mean, we do need people in our lives, but at a younger age, we kind of surround ourselves with many people, sometimes that can be even of negative effect, let's say, that can suck your energy. For me now is surrounding myself with people that can give you positive energy. You know, that's very, very important. How do you invest? We have a certain time, you know, certain resources, let's say. So I think putting that in the right people, even day-to-day people that you see around you, like even the postman, you know, driver, this, that, talking to them, you know, these small talks, these kind of connections are very, very important, you know, trying to surround yourself with people of, let's say positive energy.
Positive energy.
Yes, people with positive energy. I think that's what I have realized is important. Yes.
Yeah. And what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness is moments. There's nothing called happiness as a state all the time. It's moments. You know, you could be having your coffee in the morning and just feeling that. It's a feeling of content, of counting your blessings, you know, achievements, helping others. You know, all the things that we've said are moments that you just feel you're overwhelmed with happiness. Like you feel your heart is like, wow, yes, this is good. You know, what we're doing is good. Whatever I'm doing now, looking at your son or daughter and thinking, oh, you know, I've achieved that. You know, they have done this or this, being proud. I mean, it's moments. It's
Yeah,
it's different moments and different flavors, let's say, But I think you can't just look for happiness. It just comes your
just
way.
comes.
It just comes. You don't target. And it's never that, oh, you know what, when I'm going to be promoted, I'm going to be happy. When I'm going to do this trip, I'm going to be happy, or this or that. You don't look for that, or what's the next step. It's a journey. It's whatever comes in between in your journey. Those moments
Those moments
makes
are
you
happiness,
happy.
and so it goes contrary to this idea of pursuit of happiness, right?
Yes. No.
So you don't pursue happiness as such.
No.
You just realize and live happiness.
Yes. You just count your blessings.
You just count your
That's
blessings.
what I say. Count your blessings.
Yeah.
That's happiness.
So you've achieved so much, right, in all these years, in terms of in academia, in your teaching, in your research, and now you're in your in administration in your university. So what next? What are your goals now?
That's a good question. I mean, there are short-term goals, of course. Like I said, I want in my current job to see this office converted to technology transfer office. Why? Because again, it's about helping others. It's about helping faculty and students, making them more aware of the importance of innovation, the importance of how they think of research in a different way, thinking of more applied research in their life, and how can that lead to the knowledge-based economy in Kuwait. I mean, this is kind of my focus right now. How can I achieve all that before I finish my post? So this is kind of my short-term goals, as they say. The long-term goals is, I'm thinking, as I mentioned, that maybe coming up with a book, but still I'm not kind of, thinking around those lines.
Okay.
What is the book? Again, it has to be different. That's my motto
And the
in life.
book would be something to do with knowledge management, or something to do with research in general, or something about your life. Would it be fiction
Maybe
or
altogether.
altogether?
You don't know. Yes, maybe altogether. Maybe it has to be all together. I don't know. I still have to think. But I know deep in my heart the next step should be a good book
A good
out
book.
there.
Okay.
Also, I would like to see something that I had in mind, maybe in the next few years, is having a non-profit foundation, something to do with education, helping others also to achieve their goals. People who don't have the means or this, or even mentoring, even this. Still, again, it's a project in mind that I'm looking forward to, having that sabbatical to think about clearly, as they say.
So I think the last question is, what mentoring advice would you have for people who might follow your footsteps?
It's never too late. It's never too late. Just act on your dreams. Act. I think because we all have dreams, and you don't want them to stay dreams. You don't want them staying in your mind. So just do. You don't have to have all the answers all the time. Answers will come as you go. And this is what I have realized. Just act, start doing, and then things will fall in place.
Yes, and I think when you talk of acting, right, which basically means put it in your schedule.
Yes.
Right, for this week or this month.
And have the courage to act. Sometimes we're always fearful, either of failure, or we don't have enough confidence in our knowledge and ability to do something. So we're always hesitant, like, no. You know what? I'll wait till I'm sure of this or sure of that, or maybe this or that. No, just act. Start, and things will come, hopefully.
Thank you so much, Laila. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I sitting in the right place?
Me too.
Yeah.
If you were a tree, what tree would you be?
Interesting. Pine tree.
I'd be a fig tree because the fruits are nice. Okay.